is anybody here writes a lot as part of their job or hobby? Okay, like what does the AI do for you? How do you use it right now?
I don't know. I'm pretty skeptical about using AI for writing. I use it sometimes for like writing philosophy stuff, and I feel like it really detracts from my voice. I think it comes up with really good ideas, and it knows how to phrase things really intelligently, but it doesn't feel like it's me writing it, and I feel like it loses some of its value, especially since I'm not really like writing to communicate. I'm writing to like just like express myself, I think.
Two use cases. One is like in personal writing. For me, the most challenging thing has always been my writing and getting thoughts out of my head and into paper in a coherent way. And so I've appreciated your writing, and so like hearing like how you navigate these things I think is interesting to me. But also in a technical sense, writing is one of the highest leveraged things I can do as a software engineer, is like getting my thoughts out down for consensus building. And that has been the total flip of very successful and seeing other engineers write poorly because it was AI assisted and actually detract from consensus has been interesting.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, my job is I'm a writer for an AI company, and kind of part of my job is like to talk to engineers and help them get their ideas across, if they remember that I exist in the company, which mostly they don't. But yeah, this is kind of part of the talk, but maybe, I don't know, kind of a bit of personal history. I started the Rash's blog because I worked in finance. It was really fucking boring, and I had a lot of free time. So that's kind of how I started the blog. That's why I'm here. And I quit the job about a year ago. And I took a year to write, actually, sorry, almost 2 years ago, to write a Substack. I was going to put a lot of effort in, and that's kind of when AI started getting good. And I feel like, okay, I need to like learn how it can be useful here, like for research, for coming up with examples, for like copy editing, and like I spent, I don't know, like all of 2025 trying to get like squeeze value out of AI. I don't know, like mostly like Opus 3 was at the time. And I feel like after a year of trying, I've still like kind of mediocre at it. I've tried Fable for some technical writing. The 3 days, we were together before we were, yesterday morning I had to be like, Opus, baby, I didn't mean it. Please take me back. That was just a short fling. And it seems like a pretty good copy editor for like technical writing. All right, does I come in? I can keep the door open. Who cares? We got mics and stuff. So, yeah, we have like different questions, different anxieties around this. I said I would give this talk 2 weeks ago when Caroline asked me, because I've been thinking about this topic for many, many months, both professionally and personally. And I was like, okay, in 2 weeks, I will definitely get all my thoughts together into like a coherent thing that will like deliver an awesome like point to you, and everyone will walk away impressed. Not quite. So, we're gonna kind of talk about it in general. I do have a talk. It's kind of leading somewhere, but you might not be very impressed with it, and kind of feel free to, I don't know, participate, collaborate, kind of tell me if you think any of this is bullshit and you have a better take. Like I'm giving this talk because I'm still in the middle of it, not because I've arrived somewhere. This is a good starting point. Who has read Sam Chris's "If you use AI to write for you, I will come to your house and kill you"? So you can start with the assumption that AI is like a bad writer, and he gives an example that he goes to like, he wants to like have a meat catering company, somebody to come to his place and grill some meats, and then he's going on their website and he gets stuff like this that doesn't actually tell him how much the meat costs or what it actually does. He has a lot of examples in his essay. The examples are made up. The examples in his essay are actually written by a human, because Sam Chris lies. That's like his whole thing. Sam Chris is like epistemology practice. But this is an actual catering company. And, his lies kind of point to the truth. We don't just serve food, we create experiences. That doesn't really tell you anything. Flavor, elegance, and unforgettable moments to your next. This kind of doesn't say much. It doesn't tell you what they're grilling and how much it costs. One of the reasons it doesn't say what they're grilling and how much it costs. Guys, come in. You want to like sit up front? There's plenty of room. You want to read stuff on the screen? It is fine. This is very important. This is a talk that you should feel unusually comfortable walking out of. Because, I don't know if I'll get to this point explicitly. I'll just say it now. One of the things about AI is they're the perfect reader. They never get bored. They never miss a reference. They never like close the tab. They never bookmark it, you know, and then be like, oh, definitely read it next week and then go back. They just actually read the whole thing. Whereas you are alive and free. You can choose at any moment that this is all bullshit and you want to do something else. And you should just like stand up and leave.
Gemini leaves my prompts all the time.
Yeah, it's just like, man, I'm sick of your shit. Can you ask Sonnet or something? I don't know. Who's the most patient AI? So this is from the homepage of Fire to Fork, who are somewhere in California. Right next to it, there's obviously a button that says menu, which tells you what they're actually cooking and how much it costs. And so they have, okay, should I hire a professional mouse jiggler? Damn. I guess it's fine if I just remember to jiggle the mouse. The good question is like what is this text doing on the homepage of Fire and Fork, right? Like, it doesn't really answer any of Sam Chris's questions, but that's kind of his fault. Like, why is he looking for deep meaning in this thing? Kind of, who is this written for? By the way, Fire to Fork, what do you think Pangram says about this? Human or AI? Raise your hand if you think it's AI. It's developed AI. Raise your hand if you think it's human. Okay, it is AI according to Pangram and according to my sensibility. But also we'll see how it's not really matter, right? This is not an exam. Here's another exam from Lori. Is Lori in the room? Lori is not in the room. Lori told me she wanted to hear me talk about this and asked me what the talk is about, and then sent me her writing about this. And I guess she's busy. Lori, if you're hearing this, then come in. You know, I'm making fun of you, so you probably want to be here. So she's running the seminar, How to Write Like a Person in the Age of AI. And she gave those examples. She said she was at the gym in the shower naked. And she saw this on the shampoo. And she saw this on the conditioner. And this on the body wash. And she went, raise your hand if you think this is AI. Raise your hand if you think this is human. I felt very strongly this is not just human. This is like 60% gay man, 40% woman. And in fact, this is a thing called wackaging, I was informed, which is like kind of like wacky marketing stuff that became fashionable in some corners. But it feels a bit more alive. It's kind of trying to do something to you. I think an important thing is this is actually written on the plastic bottle itself, as opposed to, you know, the previous thing only exists on a website. It doesn't exist anywhere in physical form, you know, for this grilling company. And I don't know, maybe it's kind of trying to make you feel something, just so like for you to pick it, you know, from the supermarket. And so it's kind of like slightly creepy, over familiar tone. But in some sense, you're not really reading the shampoo bottle for meaning. You're not reading it to be like moved or changed. You're reading it because, I don't know, you're someone like me or Larry, you just like reading stuff, even when you're like in the shower. I try not to read in the shower, but some people do. Anyway, here's a fancy bottle of shampoo. And here's some slightly over-personal packaging. Here is some picture of grilled meats. And here is a piece of copy about, you know, it actually has some meaning and actually tells you what you would actually expect in your party if you hire this catering company. And both of those were written by Opus 4.8 yesterday morning. It's actually, Claude has nothing it wants to tell you about shampoo. There's nothing it like particularly wants to tell you about asado. But like, if it writes the thing that you didn't want, it's not because it's bad at writing. Like, I don't know, some of you might feel this is like much, much worse than this packaging that some English major working for like a marketing company get paid for. Some of you will feel it's like about the same. I don't know, it like vaguely mentions some ingredients. It tries to position itself slightly more upscale creepy because like Aesop is a slightly more upscale shampoo. Yeah.
I've been using this
it's one M dash per paragraph. I use two. Yeah, I don't know. I love M dash. It's a very like versatile punctuation mark. But like, again, this is kind of a matter of taste. But it's like, you can ask Claude to write something more informative and not just about where smoke meets soul and creates experiences of, transcendent mystery. And you can ask it to like write shampoo copy but creepy. So if there's something like wrong with AI writing, maybe I think it's like something wrong in what people ask AI to do. Like I don't know if that grill company was like, hey, like GPT-3 write something for our homepage, or if it explicitly asked it like, hey, can you write the sort of like text that goes on the homepage that people is going to skim over because they're just going to click on the menu, but like in the second before they skim over, their eyes are going to like land on words like experience, or I don't know, whatever the stuff was. Like you shouldn't be reading this. Like reading this for meaning is like kind of stupid and insane, and only Sam Chris does it. You look at this and you're like, company, organic, experience, organic professionals. I got a mood, and I'm going to click on the menu and see how much it costs. And like, gonna have the intention to do it. There's nothing like mechanically that is wrong with AI about writing this. Another thing you might notice, and this is kind of like Sam Chris's problem, is you live your life, you like want some grilled meats, you're looking for shampoo, and you notice AI writing everywhere. And you're like, fuck, AI is taking over. But like, this shit has like always been on the websites of grilled meats. This shit has always been in shampoo bottles. This shit has always been the New York Times. This is an article from the New York Times from 2020. Tesla owners, blah, 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 racist forums. The words in the middle are not really important. You're not supposed to read them. This is an article about, hey, it's 2020. The New York Times reader wants to know who's racist and who's not today. That's kind of the only thing. There's no like very clear deep meaning. And the article itself, this is Nellie Bowles, who has since kind of like become a heretic to this movement after she married Barry Weiss. But Elon Musk, something, something Tesla, something, something Trump, something, something Ivanka, deeply misogynistic, something racist, male separatist, MG, like men going their own way. Like what the fuck does it have to do with Tesla? No one knows. Who are the Tesla owners who are grappling? They don't talk to any Tesla owners, right? This is all just like explaining all of the connotations of red pill, of which there are many because it was in a movie 26 years ago. And right, like basically reading the New York Times isn't like, I need to be informed about what are the connotations of Tesla. Or no, sorry, no one's like, I need to be informed about, you're like walking up and being like, man, what are Tesla owners grappling with today? I want to know. It's like, no, it's 2020, like people expect whatever newspapers to like talk about things being racist and to mention Trump 4 times in them. And you just kind of do it, right? You like kind of read it for, you like go with the flow. This is very interesting. This is from a guy named Will Storr. And if you notice that this is a year ago. And he said he started noticing there's like Substacks in the kind of like self-helpy, woo, vibey philosophy category that are like really blowing up and becoming popular. And they have like a lot of kind of this sort of sentence. And when you read this sort of sentence like late at night, it's like, it's so comforting. It's like a pillow. And all of those things, they get like thousands and thousands of likes. So I actually included this, right? So Will Storr was like pretty big on Substack. He got 1,400 likes in like over a year for pointing out how the entire leaderboard of whole categories of like who self-help Substack is obviously AI generated. It's not even that those sentences are kind of fluffy, but like obviously they keep going. You just want to fill up the entire screen. They don't like really say anything. They don't like really conjure an image. They don't change you in any way. You might ask like, why? Who is this for? And the answer is that people don't read self-help Substacks to change their lives. They read self-help Substacks because it's comfort food. It's kind of nice to read them. It puts you in this mood of like slightly emotional but also positive. If there's a part of you that tells you that you should be like, I don't know, doing spiritual development, but you're not sure how to do spiritual development, that seems hard and like scary, then instead you can like read Substacks about spiritual development and finding the like value in loneliness, or like someone feels the pain of your exhaustion, or whatever this is about. But those types kind of like existed before, and they were not actually trying to change your life, and people were not reading them for their lives to be changed. They were kind of reading them to, I don't know, like, is this in the style of a thing that makes me feel like, you know, I have read a self-help thing and now feel like calm and inspired. Very much in the same way, when, you know, like you're not eating Pringles for the nutritional value. And so, this is the point I know. There's like all these complaints about AI writing. There's like a lot of writing out there that it seems like AI could do. And I feel like, again, AI can clearly like do this better than Will Storr can, even though he's a very good writer. And AI definitely can do this. Like this is like, actually, I'm not even like, this is actually Nelly Bowles, but like you can imagine. And most of it seems to be driven by the fact there's a lot of text out there that people were never actually like reading to like get something out of it, and not just shampoo bottles. Okay, so like what is something that kind of happening with LLMs? One thing, you know, if you've learned to write, there's a great essay by a guy from Kenya who's Iqbal, I think his name. It was mentioned in a recent Scott post. He says like, I didn't teach ChatGPT to write, but like he writes like me because we were taught the same way. And he mentions like, in Kenya, English is not the first language, but to like get into any good university, you need to prove your English composition. And so you write those essays and they are graded by teachers. And the teachers, A, they're forced to read it, kind of like an LLM is forced to read your stuff. And they have like a clear rubric, right? Does this person use like, I don't know, a creative metaphor, something unexpected, complicated vocabulary? Do they like mix an emotion into kind of concrete descriptions, or like flowery metaphors? And like some of those essays might be like kind of good, but the person who reads them, the person who they're for, is not reading it for themselves. They're reading it to give it a grade. And when you're testing shampoo sales, again, you're kind of like writing for a number. If you're just optimizing for Substack likes, you're kind of writing for a number. If you're in grad school, I noticed this, I was working on a writing project with some people who learned to write on the degenerate internet like me, and we had a few colleagues who learned to write in academia. And the internet writers, we just wanted to say something interesting. And then people from academia would be like, but how can you like 100% prove this? And we're like, we don't. If somebody thinks this is bullshit, they will just not read us. Why would you read the blog of a small startup if you like don't feel in your heart that like this is true, and that you want like different interfaces for your AI? But they have learned to write for a reader who is captive. But like isn't like the peer reviewer reading your paper in academia, they might want to like learn something, but they're kind of like stuck there. And like the most they can do is like nitpick, or instead of nitpicking, like put it in their pocket as a thing that they learn. That's kind of how LLMs learn to write, right? So like most of LLM, you know, they started by just like next token prediction in pre-training. So kind of Substack recently kind of make the point. The reason they start every sentence with like that's not blah, 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 is because not is just a very likely word to come after that's. If you want to say what something is, when you say, you know, that's a positive thing, you have a lot of words that could come after that. And like every individual one of those is like not very likely, but not is quite likely. And so if you just like go word by word, you will end up saying that's not. And then you're like kind of stuck. You're kind of stuck saying what it's not and then actually what it is. And you know, if you ask it to write any fiction, if the setting is fantasy, the guy's name is going to be Keo, and if the setting is modern, the guy's name is going to be Marcus. This is like remarkably stable, especially for GPT models. But it really just like loves those names. It's like, yeah, when you write a story one word at a time, you kind of end up in those weird things. Same for the M dashes. M dashes is very versatile. You can kind of use them to like, you know, separate an independent clause, or instead of like a comma, or instead of a semicolon. They're just like awesome, you know? Just like use M dashes a lot. Now, how like most people learn to write to get a grade. Most LLMs kind of learn to write to get a grade, right? To like pass. You know, the people like were doing RLHF for creative writing, and this isn't like, you know, the story about the like thousands of Kenyans doing like sensitivity training. like no one knows for sure, but the big companies, probably like OpenAI and Anthropic too, they hired like people with MFAs to like read things and say, okay, is this like actual kind of good, interesting language? But those people were not reading the things to feel something. They were reading, GPT-3's paragraphs to say, oh, does this sound like the sort of kind of advanced language that's like not too boring, that's like MFA style. And so the guy kind of learns to read or write, kind of to like pass a marker, get a grade, get a number, and a thing. And a lot of stuff that people read, they kind of read it this way. So we started with this email, or I don't know, someone like mentioned this. It's like a very famous cartoon. And like, yeah, like, why do you need to pretend you read the entire email? You actually just needed the one point. And that person only needed to tell you this one point. And like, kind of having to write the whole email is in some sense like the rest of the email just to get a grade, to show like, hey, I've put in enough effort to like demonstrate to you with this like mildly costly signal that I'm a professional, I respect you, that my one point is worth reading. But this is fine. This just saved everybody time. Like nothing bad happened here. No one's reading like emails for the pros. I was sometimes try to like write really like flowery and cool emails at work just because I was bored, and I was like, I'll at least entertain people. But again, I'm a pervert. This is all right. Kind of been going on for like about 20 minutes straight. I want people's thoughts so far about shampoos, grilled meat, New York Times, Substack, emails. I don't know. What's on people's minds? In the back, you need to yell, or I don't know, a mic will come up to you.
Yeah, there's some good AI Substacks I read. Like one of them, I think it got taken down. I think Sam Chris linked it once. It was like called Donald Plump, which is like, I guess political satire. Not really. It's just giving like, I don't know how a New York Times article would describe something that happened with Donald Trump, except he's like a fruit, and all the other political candidates are also fruits. And this was just a one-time article I read, funny, I shared it with a friend. The other one is like erotica. There's like a lot of AI-generated images. I don't know, I don't mind them. They seem pretty good. Not sure.
There's a fascinating Substack, if you want to try it. It's called terminalyadrift.substack.com. So this guy, he has this like really complex, he's basically like black pills and countries. He has this like whole thing explaining where like everything about Japan is about the emasculation of men, and everything about like the Chinese dating market is like broken, or everything like the Haredim in Israel is because they're like the Jews of the Jews. And he has like really original ideas, and he really like wants you to like go on a journey. And he has those vignettes and like screenshots and like articles. Like really does a ton of research. Like he was actually like asking me a lot of like really in-depth question about Israel. And then the prose itself is 70% AI, which is like kind of weird. But like clearly the ideas are his. AI would never have come up with the like, let me black pill you, and like why Chinese people aren't getting married. And it's because of all of those like deep things. And he just like prefers GPT's style to his own in kind of a funny way. And like I think the Substack is really, really good because there's like a guy who actually like wants you to like go on a journey with him. And then the fact that like, every paragraph ends with a sentence of like, it wasn't a rejection. It was a, verdict delivered with the force of 40 years of history. And like, like it's fine. It's almost like, oh, it's cute. Like, I know you like did all the work. You're like a deep thinker who's like obsessed with those things. And then like you wrote a sentence and you're like, nah, GPT can do it better. But like, when you see someone who's like actually trying to move you and take you on a journey and do something to you, that comes through despite the M dashes. And when you have a human, just like a very talented human, Nelly Bowes, just like, okay, here's the weekly like 5 minutes of hate. Then like you can like feel her soul departing her body, even though this was like typed on a vintage typewriter or written with ink pen. Yeah.
Sorry, two distinct questions. One thought I'm having is, particularly as we look at the left side of this slide, the association I'm having is sort of like psychological SEO. like when you, the fire to fork thing, right? That text is there because it gives you a vague sense of like organic. It said organic like 7 times. But also that's getting crawled for SEO. And like presumably if you're searching like organic caterers in my area, this will come up.
All right. Jen, come up. Sorry.
And I'm curious what you think about that sort of effect of the latter thing of just like, oh, the New York Times stuff is written so that it's triggering the like Tesla, Musk, racism things in my search crawler, and like I'll click on it more. The second comment is just like related to the second half of that screen. If I'm not mistaken, you wrote a self-help Substack, and I'm curious like how you think about, like, do you think it was more effective because of the way you were writing it more personally versus like the AI generated ones, or I'm thinking of second person. So
to the first question, like, if you were looking to get some asado grill for your party, would you go on Google and click on random websites, or would you just like ask Claude? Ask Claude. Okay, what would Claude say? Claude has never eaten grilled meat. Claude is going to read all of the websites, and he's going to be like, organic experience. Only $20 per pound. Right? Like, this was always psychological SEO, and now like it's going to be like LLMs writing for a grade that is then graded by LLMs. And like, yeah, it's fine. Like, when humans were reading it, kind of their soul wasn't in it. You just want to like know that you'll click on it and some meat will have arrived, and it's going to be like as like upscale as you can like get within your budget. And like, do you give a fuck it's organic? No, but it's kind of like a symbol for like, oh, this is the sort of catering that like, you know, upper middle class people like you get their meat from. And yeah, like you used to kind of skim over it, and now just Claude skims over it. Not much has been lost. On my own Substack, I started it with like a really like, I wrote like 5 posts about like what's wrong with people that are looking for self-help. This is not self-help. I'm not giving you instruction. I'm not going to talk in this like, I have academic credentials kind of thing. It probably didn't do anything. I think helping people at all through writing is incredibly hard. Maybe people who were like kind of close to getting it, I've nudged them. Everybody who's told me that my writing has helped them with dating, almost all of it is they're saying, oh, I believe this sort of thing. I believe women judge men in this way. I believe like, oh, every guy just wants this. Or, you know, I believe something about like markets or men, women. And then they just read me explaining something, and it like broke the spell for them. And kind of like untaught them something. And then they actually went out and lived their own like dating life that I know nothing about and can help them with because it's personal. But yeah, I'm not kind of skeptical about the power of helping people through writing in general. I can entertain people. Helping is very rare. And if you write in a self-helpy way, then it's like even rarer because it's just like very clearly, at least like, I don't know, to me, it seems like very clearly a substitute to doing the work is reading about the work. Okay, so where does it leave you? Okay, so like, you know, grilled meats, shampoo, New York Times article, I don't know, self-help. It's just kind of like happening around you. But maybe, I don't know, maybe like you still want to kind of do something with it. Like, what's the point? It's like a life question for me, right? Because I know I have like blogs. There's like a company paying me money to write. I'm kind of trying to figure this out for myself so I can sleep at night. Well, that's like what can't, yes.
So my question is, do we need to? And here's why, right? I mean, you gave an example of, you know, those folks in Kenya learning how to write a certain way because they are like, you know, graded in a certain way, right? Years from now, people, the kind of writing that they will learn to read would be mostly AI generated. So if you're writing with like a human voice, does your voice really matter? Or like, will it sound so strange to your ear because it doesn't really, you know, sound like what you're...
Is this human voice?
It sounds weird, but the thing is that because, you know...
I don't know, is this?
Mostly what I've read hasn't been AI generated to this point.
Okay.
You extrapolate, you know, 5-10 years in the future.
Sure, okay, so you can disagree with me, but here's my point. This is actually like, I'm kind of glad you asked it, even though I'm going to make fun of your question. AI can write any voice. There's no human voice. Humans might have experiences. humans can simulate a person, which is very helpful in some sorts of writing. And maybe I can do that without actually like simulating and feeling what another person does, but it's going to be kind of hard for reasons that I'm going to get to. Humans might like want you to have an experience. They might have like a volition and desire, and I think they want to do with the writing that the AI doesn't have. I think if you concentrate on the voice, on like
My point is, would you be able to recognize it as such if you are only used to a voice that sounds in an AI generated?
cool. So, all right, so I'll spoil the talk. Here's my answer. I don't give a fuck. Like, I'm going to read this if I think it's like kind of likely this will like change me, move me, give me some meaning. Everything been written by AI, if it's like poorly prompted on something, then like it's kind of annoying because it just becomes like harder to find stuff that's written by a person who wants me to have a particular experience in my body. But like, if I read something, like again, this guy Terminator Drift, I read his like essay about Japan and I was like, fuck. Like, it kind of changes how I feel about Japan. It changes how I feel about Israel, which I think is like the anti-Japan, where like failure is too much tolerated, in Japan like not enough. And Israel is like very masculine, and Japan's like very emasculated. And it's like, whoa, this is like, I'm like conceiving of the world like differently now. And again, the voice was literally like GPT 5.4, like so recognizable. And like, can I ask yourself like, what are you reading for? And again, I don't expect what's happening in 10 years. I mean, like, thinking, okay, what should our orientation to it to be right now? Or like, I don't know, why do I justify like standing up here talking to you and also like having a job and also having a blog? And also, I'm like not going to get into discussions of AI consciousness and stuff right now. What I mean by having experience is the sort of experience you have, which is very much tied to like, you know, things happening in your body, things can happen in your life history. When AI writes about, you know, sitting in the garden outside in the sunshine, hearing like the murmur of voices, like at least we can like agree it didn't actually do that. So, all right, so the first one is about having an experience. Does anybody recognize Zungi? Do people know where this is from? You guys like really not on Twitter enough. There is a thing called the Commonwealth Literature Prize, which is like a prize given to like writers from different parts of the British Commonwealth, but this like magazine granta. As you can guess, it's like very like post-colonial vibey stuff. And this is a paragraph from the essay that won first place for Caribbean and West Indies. And this is awful. What the fuck does benches speak like I'm sorry. And also it's like super AI. It's like awful in a way that like could have been done by a human, but I don't know. You would hope a human would pause and be like, read this and imagine Zungi. Can you actually imagine her? Do you actually know a Zungi? Do those sentences actually connect into like, do they coalesce into a woman? That like if I was trying to write about some wacky shit happening like Trinidad, the guy wanted to kill his wife and then having second thought and there's some talking plants. It was very hard to get through the essay. I would like think of a girl I know and try to describe her and kind of change a couple details. Because like I had experience with a girl who made me feel like I'm a bench becoming a man or whatever. Or I don't know, like maybe there was something about her laugh that like really touched me and I described it with laughter and with iron in it. And maybe like people don't get what it means. But there's no way the entire paragraph would be so disconnected from, okay, you imagine like a black-haired girl who's like kind of like a little powerful and a bit weird, but not in any way it's like super connects to those. Does anybody recognize this? This is Sam Altman's Pride and Joy. He asked GPT-5, I guess, to come up with a story about AI and grief. And the story about AI and grief included the selenium tastes of rubber bands, which I'm not sure what it means. When's the last time anyone here tasted a rubber band? I don't know. I guess I've probably licked a rubber band once in a while. Does it taste like selenium? I don't know. I've never licked selenium. Dyed means it's like deep in them and inherent, right? When you get like the color really in. And draped over means the opposite. So the words kind of sound nice. But like, are the emotions in the sentence? Are they like around it? And again, this is like the sort of kind of writing that happens when you've been like, you have like kind of, like, I wanted to say when you have no idea what you're talking about, but it's like wrong. It has an idea what it's talking about. It doesn't have an idea of like what it's like. And when you're trying to write about what it's like, then it doesn't work. This you guys won't recognize because this is from me asking GPT a question about real estate taxes. And what I didn't realize is I had my guide to writing, which I wrote for my colleagues, in context. And in that one, I talk about kind of writing embodied metaphors. You really want to communicate something, you want to paint a picture that people can like feel with their body. Right? You want to talk about technical debt, you talk about a messy kitchen. Because like, people like imagine walking to a messy kitchen and be like, this is like the result of a lot of like corners cut and stuff like that. And so GPT was trying to come up with a novel original embodied metaphors. And in an answer about taxes, it came up with two of the literally worst ones I've ever done. So this is supposed to mean unemotional. Does anyone have a house cat? Are you emotional about your house cat? Is your house cat kind of emotional? What does this mean? Organs dim is like you could just tell that whoever wrote it doesn't have a body. There's like a reason. I mean, first of all, if you're like activated, this is like talking about making like a big payment to the state of California. And it's like, it might like piss you off. And like, if I'm pissed off, I wouldn't look at my organs. And also being activated, they would be like bright instead of dim. And so this is right, like I think like I can write the New York Times, but it kind of can't write what it's like, how it feels to pay taxes in California, kind of strangely. It can tell you a lot about taxes in California, but not how it feels in your body. Or it can like steal from someone else who wrote about it, which is like fine. But it like it will like kind of miss because it doesn't have organs. And so if you want to communicate your experience to someone, or just like talk about it, or just like put it into words, this is something that will also seem like kind of hard. Like, how would you even train for this? Right? Like, you can extrapolate a lot about writing from reading people's stuff, but you kind of need, it's like a lot of steps of inference that, again, maybe some like genius super AI will get to. But right now, it doesn't seem close to like extrapolating how your gut feels when you like hit, I don't know, submit taxes. This is one of my favorite tweets. It says, SF is an extremely walkable city and I will die on this hill. And I commented with this screenshot because like I read this and I liked it and I didn't get it. And then like 2 minutes later, I got it and I went back to the tweet. Now my point here is, so this one time I asked Claude, I asked it the therapy question. I had like a really tough week and I wanted to text my friend. And then my friend was busy. And my friend told me to text Claude. And I told Claude about how I'm feeling like besieged and kind of like, I'm like stuck in emotional situations I'm not built for and what to do with it. And Claude was like super fucking good. And I was like, damn, bro, like you really get me. And then I talked to my friend whose mom is a therapist. And he was like, oh no, like therapists don't know what's going on with you. They just like pattern match into one of the like 7-8 standard ways in which people get like, emotionally clenched or something. And I was like, oh yeah, like when I give people dating advice, I'm like, oh, you're one of those 8 types of like guy who's lost and doesn't know what you want. You're like one of those like 6 types of, like woman who's like trying to manifest but doing it in the wrong way and can't decide if you're doing manifesting or yang agency or something. And so it turns out therapy doesn't require simulating the person, but humor does. There are many ways to write this tweet, and only one of them is funny. And the reason it's funny is you gotta know exactly what your readers will get, and then lead them like an inch before that. And AI is like very good at therapy, and it's very bad at humor. And I think part of it is humor actually requires both like kind of knowing, like if I'm making like a joke in a conversation, it requires very much like knowing kind of like the emotional sense. Like, oh, maybe the person I'm talking to is like getting a bit scared and not sure about what. And so my joke should be reassuring. Or it's the opposite. They're getting like bored and my joke should spice it up. And then I also need to like really model what they're getting to. And again, this is something that seems like kind of hard to train for. And I think like any writing that requires simulating the reader really well, which involves both like explaining difficult ideas to them or making them feel something or making them laugh, is kind of like the small rare corner that I think AIs are quite far from at the moment. And here's the other part, right? But I like wanting you to have experiences. when I discovered the rationalist in like 2013, and I started my blog in 2015. And I used to write posts about a moral philosophy, because that's what people were doing. And I used to write posts about donating to Miri, because that's what people were doing. And I'm kind of like not sure exactly why. I mean, I did end up on like Scott's blog row, which was kind of nice. But I kind of wanted to write like Scott and like writing about his topics, but not because I felt I had something really important to say about AI safety or new. And those posts weren't very good, and not a lot of people read them. And it's because like I was kind of, while I was like orthodox rationalist, I was kind of like a very good like ChatGPT of being a rationalist writer. And then at some point, I wrote this at 4 a.m. after like a whole day dropping acid with my wife. And I just like, really want to like, communicate what it's like staring at this grapefruit at 4 a.m. after taking a tab of acid for the first time in my life. And I I didn't care if anybody would read it. I was just like, this is such a wacky fucking experience of like how I feel about this grapefruit. And I can't sleep anyway. I'm going to try to put it into words. And then also I talked to evolutionary psychologists who explained to me that like all of human intellectual achievement is kind of, evolved to get laid. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Maybe some hot girls are reading my blog. And then they put like, an application to ask me out on a date for anyone who reads my blog. And I kind of started writing because like, I wanted to get something done. I wanted to do something to the reader. And it doesn't mean even just like in a nefarious way of, I want like hot girls to like me and to like get status in the community. But also like, hey, I arrived at this like insight and this idea, and I just want people to like also like actually believe that. And I want them to believe that because they like arrived at this idea at the same journey that I took to arrive them. That's like intrinsically motivating to me. And then like everything I write, I'm like simulating Jacob like 2 weeks before it clicked for me. And think like, okay, what would it do for me? And again, like it's not like I was like writing directly for attractive women. It was like, okay, like, what do I want like the experience of like talking to me on a date, for example, to be? And then, like, how do I like cause somebody to have that experience through reading my posts, right? Where do I like insert a joke that also like makes you a little bit scared, and kind of keeps you on your toes? And I think to me, I don't know, the writing I think AI is furthest from is shitposting. It's one of my favorite shitposts that I've written in like January 2021. And this came after kind of like really being like pissed at things for a long time. So I kind of want you to giggle because it's kind of funny. But I also kind of want you to be a little bit mad about like, the sort of feminists who kind of jump between the moat and Bailey. Of like, oh, if you're a guy and you're complaining, well, that's different from like structural oppression. But then like if a guy does something bad, it's like, well, you're kind of doing that because of the patriarchy. Like, why is like the patriarchy always kind of used to fucking like attack me regardless of which side it's done? And like, I wanted people to like, kind of be like a bit confused and a bit angry. I wanted the worst people on Twitter to have a bad day. I wanted the dumbest people on Twitter to like read this and just like sit there being like super fucking mad for 10 minutes, trying to decide if I'm a rightoid or a leftoid. It's like very important to me. But like I don't know, look, both of you like it, but like, this was written through like me just wanting to like reach out through the screen and like fuck a bunch of people up in a different way. Feminists, QAnoners, my friends, just random people. And this is like I just doesn't have that. Like he just like, doesn't really want to do anything for you. I did ask it, so we're running out of time. I'm going to just jump to the last slide. Can I ask it to summarize the talk? And I think it did a pretty good job. Because again, I asked it to. It didn't want to tell you guys this. I want to tell you guys this. Look, most writing kind of, I don't know, it was kind of like for a grade anyway, for skimming, for, I don't know, telling people who's racist today, for kind of like communicating the vibe. And like people who were writing that, like they're not, like the readers left. And the readers are just going to use their Claude to like read all of this stuff. And people are going to like use Claude to write to Claude, and it's fine. It's going to like raise the price of like memory for your PlayStation because we're going to burn a lot of GPUs in like Claude telling Claude about grilled meat. And like, if you want something from a human being, like, it might be kind of harder to make money from it. I don't know. If you're like a copywriter writing like item descriptions on Amazon, yeah, I don't know. I just think I would like rather hire Claude than you, unless you're like a true genius. But if you're gonna write as thinking, or if you just want to do something to people and you think like writing is a good way to do it, that's kind of what I'm doing this. And, you know, like I came here to give this talk in part to have an experience, which is, again, I wasn't really sure where this talk is going. Kind of like it's been like a roller coaster where I'm like, I think there's like enough track to bring it home, but I'm not sure. And the track is the slides, but like, there's no notes for the slides and didn't rehearse it. And I was like, okay, I kind of want people to be like kind of a bit uncomfortable and not like round off the question of AI and writing to any simple answer, because I've been thinking about it for months and I'm still confused and I want to infect you with it. And so I'm going to give like a slightly like not fully coherent talk and I hope to bring you along with it. And yeah, you can do it too.